must see the real thing to be sure. Nabadis taught us much. Yes, it's well hidden. They'll be off chasing after shadows, the fools. Ah, yes. The reins of history back in the hands of man.
Remember when I talked about legacy characters in my Gilgamesh video? The most enduring of these legacy characters is none other than Cid. Every game since Final Fantasy II has had a version of the character, and they're always some sort of scientist, pilot, or engineer or whatnot. However, somewhere around 2010, the series had this really weird kick of having evil Cids. And out of all of these, the most memorable is the one from Final Fantasy XII, Dr. Cid, whose full name I'm not even going to try to say, not only because it's hard to remember, but because it's incredibly silly. Dr. Cid is the brilliant scientific mind behind the Arcadian Empire's research into Nethicite, a powerful element that absorbs mist and releases it as magic, spelled with a K for some reason. Cid immediately saw the applications of his discovery and used it to create all sorts of machines, airships, weapons, you name it. However, he owed a lot of his knowledge to a being called Vana, who is an Acuria. Now, the Acuria are basically godlike beings who have manipulated the course of history through puppet kings for centuries because they believe humanity is too stupid to be trusted with their own free will. Cid and Vana share a common goal of putting the reins of history back in the hands of men. However, despite his brilliance, he's written off by many as just a mad scientist, because not only did his research lead him to forsake any and all sense of ethics, but also due to the fact that Vana only appears to a select few, making it seem to most people as though he's having animated discussions with empty space. Now, Final Fantasy XII's writing has always been a treat. It manages to sound elevated and almost Shakespearean without coming off as pretentious, coupled with some excellent voice acting. I bring this up because it emphasizes just how hammy Dr. Cid is. Every other line he says is dripping with over-the-top enthusiasm. As you'll see as we get closer to number 1, I've always had a soft spot for villains with a flair for the theatric, and Dr. Cid is theatric, bombastic, and fond of grand sweeping gestures, and overall he's just so much fun to watch.
A trial for a Shelia Banargin Dalmasca!
Over the course of the game, you fight against him twice, and both of those fights are really intense and really fun. He employs all manner of scientific devices to assist him, leading up to his secret weapon. A freaking Gatling gun!
No pity from me! Stand and fight!
It also helps that the second fight against him occurs at what is ostensibly the real climax of the story, and as a result has a ton of emotional weight to it. One thing I really do love about not just Dr. Cid, but all of the villains in 12, is the legitimate sense of camaraderie between all the villains. Dr. Cid's relationship with the other bad guys is part mutual respect, part manipulation. It's implied near the end of the game that he was considering betraying his superiors for the sake of scientific curiosity. If I do have one complaint about him, it's that his relationship with Balthier isn't explored as much as it could have been. I mean, Balthier is Dr. Cid's estranged son, and yet the game hardly ever seems to delve into that. I want to say Dr. Cid is one of the best examples of a mad scientist in fiction, but he is not mad. He's just really theatric and bombastic in everything he does. He may not have the bottomless well of evil as Dr. Hojo, but he makes up for it with memorable presence, excellent boss fights, and endearingly over-the-top mannerisms. And to think, he's not even the highest-ranking 12 villain on this list.